My sister texted, "Send me your card details." Dad said, "You're paying for our Christmas trip." I replied, "That's not happening." The next morning, Mom messaged, "Don't be dramatic. I already booked everything on your card." I stared at my phone like it had just grown fangs and bitten me. The message from my mother sat there smug in its certainty, as if she had just informed me she'd watered my plants while I was away, instead of committing what was essentially fraud. "Don't be dramatic. I already booked everything on your card." My hands shook as I read it again. Then again. The words didn't change no matter how many times my eyes traced over them. My sister Brittany's message from the night before suddenly made horrifying sense. She hadn't been asking permission. She'd been giving me a heads up about something already in motion. Let me back up, because this disaster has roots that go deep. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. My parents, Linda and Robert Hartley, made sure I understood that responsibility came with expectations. Brittany, 3 years younger than me, learned a different lesson entirely. She learned that batting her eyelashes and crying on cue meant someone else would handle things for her. When I was 16, I worked weekends at a local diner to save for a car. Brittany was 13 and wanted a new iPhone. My parents sat me down at the kitchen table and explained that family meant sacrifice. They needed to borrow $2,000 from my savings just temporarily. Brittany would be so grateful, and I'd understand when I was older. I never saw that money again. At 18, I left for college on a partial scholarship, working 2 jobs to cover what wasn't paid for. Brittany visited once, staying in my cramped dorm room for a weekend. She left with my laptop, claiming hers had broken, and she desperately needed it for a school project. My roommate, Jasmine, watched the whole thing with her mouth hanging open. "You're just letting her take it," Jasmine asked. "What else could I do?" Family meant sacrifice, remember? College taught me more than what was in the textbooks. It taught me boundaries, though I learned that lesson slowly and painfully. By the time I graduated with my business degree, I'd built a wall between myself and my family. Not a complete barrier, but something solid enough to protect the parts of me that mattered. I moved to Chicago for work, putting 3 states between us. The distance helped. Phone calls became easier to screen. Visits happened on my terms, usually major holidays, and even those I could sometimes beg off with work obligations. My career took off in ways I'd never imagined. Marketing management at a tech firm, then a jump to a bigger company, then another. By 32, I was pulling in a 6-figure salary, living in a downtown apartment with a view of the lake. I'd worked myself to exhaustion for every penny of it. Brittany, meanwhile, had married young. Her husband, Kyle, worked construction, decent money when the jobs were steady. They had 2 kids, Aiden and Madison, and lived in the same town where we grew up. From what I could tell from Facebook, they did fine. Not wealthy, but comfortable enough. Our parents had retired to Arizona 5 years ago. Dad's pension and their Social Security kept them going, plus some savings they'd squirreled away. They downsized to a small house in a retirement community, spent their days golfing and playing bridge. This arrangement worked for everyone. I sent birthday cards, called on major occasions, and wired money when they had unexpected expenses. A new air conditioner, dental work, car repairs. Nothing enormous, but it added up. I told myself I was being generous, that this was what successful people did for their families. The truth was simpler and more pathetic. I was still trying to buy their approval. Thanksgiving had been fine. I'd flown back home, stayed in a hotel, and endured 3 days of pointed comments about my single status and childless life. Brittany brought up my fancy career with an edge in her voice that could have cut glass. Mom wondered aloud when I'd settle down and give them more grandchildren. Dad mostly grunted and watched football. Standard stuff. I survived it like I always did, then flew back to Chicago with relief, singing in my veins. December started normal enough. Work ramped up as everyone tried to close deals before the holidays. I had plans with friends for Christmas Eve, a quiet day alone on Christmas with takeout and movies, then a New Year's trip to Montreal I'd been looking forward to for months. Then came Brittany's text on December 15th. "Hey, send me your card details. Dad said you're paying for our Christmas trip. Need to book flights by tomorrow to get the good prices." I read it twice, standing in my kitchen, with a glass of wine halfway to my lips. The audacity of it knocked the breath from my lungs. I called immediately. She answered on the 4th ring, kids screaming in the background. "Hey, what's up?" Brittany sounded distracted. "What's this about a Christmas trip?" "Oh yeah. Didn't Dad tell you we're all going to Aspen? There's this amazing resort, skiing the whole thing. The kids are so excited." "Brittany, I didn't agree to pay for anything." Silence stretched between us. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted into that wheedling tone I knew too well. "Come on, it's not that much. Dad said you'd be happy to do it. You make so much money, and we haven't had a real family vacation in forever." Kyle's been working so hard, and with the kids getting older, who knows when we'll get another chance like this. How much is not that much? Like 15,000, maybe 18 with everything included. But split between all of us, it's really not bad. I actually laughed sharp and bitter. You want me to drop $18,000 on a vacation I wasn't even invited to? Of course you're invited. God, why do you always have to be so difficult? This is about family. There it was, the magic word that had controlled me for 3 decades. I'm not paying for this, Brittany. If you want to go to Aspen, you'll have to figure it out yourselves. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking again, but this time with something that felt like power. The text started immediately. First from Brittany paragraphs about how selfish I was being, how I'd changed how money had made me cold. Then from Kyle, shorter messages about disappointing the kids. I blocked them both and poured another glass of wine. Dinner was leftover Thai food, eaten standing at my kitchen counter, my appetite gone. I knew it wouldn't end there. My family never took no for an answer, especially when they wanted something this badly. When Mom's text came through the next morning, I was getting ready for work. I'd slept badly, dreams full of arguments and accusations. The notification made my stomach drop before I even read it. Don't be dramatic. I already booked everything on your card. My vision actually blurred. I had to sit down on my bed, professional slacks only half zipped, and force myself to breathe. I called my mother. She answered cheerfully like she hadn't just admitted to a crime. Sweetie, I'm so glad you called. I wanted to go over the itinerary with you. Mom! My voice came out strangled. What did you do? I booked the Aspen trip. Brittany had your card information saved from that emergency plane ticket you bought her last year. Remember when Madison had that medical scare? The resort is gorgeous. We got a family suite, lift tickets for everyone, even ski lessons for the kids. The room spun. You used my credit card without permission. Oh, honey, don't be silly. You're family. Besides, Brittany said you'd already agreed to it. I explicitly said no. Mom's tone shifted, cooling several degrees. Paulina, I really don't appreciate this attitude. Your father and I have given you everything. We raised you, paid for your college, and this is how you repay us by being stingy when we want one nice family vacation. I paid for most of my college, and this is how you repay us by being stingy when we want one nice family vacation. Do you know how it makes us look when we have to tell people our own daughter refused to help out? The manipulation was so naked, so obvious, but it still wormed its way under my skin. Years of conditioning don't disappear just because you recognize them. Cancel it, I said. Cancel everything right now, or I'm calling the credit card company and reporting fraud. You wouldn't dare. That would be reporting your own mother to the police. Try me. I hung up and immediately called my credit card company. The representative, a woman named Jennifer, with a kind voice, listened to my explanation with professional sympathy. I can certainly dispute these charges for you, Miss Hartley. We'll start a fraud investigation. Can you confirm you didn't authorize anyone to use your card? Absolutely not. And you want to cancel this card and have a new one issued? Yes, immediately. The charges total $22,847.63. $22,000 for a week in Aspen. All inclusive for my parents, my sister's family, and apparently a spot left open for me should I come to my senses. Jennifer processed everything efficiently. The charges would be reversed pending investigation. A new card would arrive in 3 to 5 business days. I gave her my work address for delivery. One more thing, I said. Is there a way to flag my account? Make sure nobody else can access it or claim to be authorized. I'll make a note. And I'd also recommend setting up additional security measures. Verbal, password, that sort of thing. I spent the next hour calling my bank, my other credit cards everywhere that had my financial information. By the time I finished, I was late for work and my jaw ached from clenching it. The office was chaos, everyone scrambling before the holiday break. I threw myself into it, gratefully letting spreadsheets and marketing metrics crowd out the morning's disaster until my phone started ringing. Dad first. I declined the call. Then Brittany. Declined. Mom again. Declined. Kyle, Brittany, Dad, Mom, Brittany. Finally, I turned my phone completely off and shoved it in my desk drawer. My coworker Marcus noticed. You okay? You look like you're about to murder someone. Family stuff. He winced in sympathy. Say no more. My sister tried to make me co-sign a car loan last month. Family brings out the worst in people. When I finally turned my phone back on at 7 p.m., there were 43 missed calls and 67 text messages. I didn't read most of them. The ones I did scan through followed a predictable pattern. Brittany anger accusations, guilt trips, mom disappointment, passive aggression, thinly veiled threats about cutting me off. Dad terse demands that I call him immediately. Kyle confusion about why I was doing this to the kids. The kids! They always brought up the kids, like Aiden and Madison's Christmas joy was my personal responsibility. I poured a generous glass of bourbon and started typing a response. I deleted it, wrote another, deleted that too. Finally, I settled on something simple and sent it to the family group chat. I did not authorize any charges. I've disputed them with my credit card company. If any of you use my financial information again, I will press charges. This is not negotiable. The response was instantaneous. Brittany, are you, __, kidding me right now? Mom, how dare you threaten your own family? Dad, call me now. I muted the group chat and blocked them individually. The silence that followed felt both liberating and terrifying. Sleep didn't come easy. I kept thinking about Christmases past. The good memories mixed in with the exploitation, decorating cookies with Brittany when we were kids before I became the family ATM. Dad teaching me to ride a bike. Mom braiding my hair before school. When had it all gone wrong? Or had it always been wrong and I was just now seeing it clearly? The next few days blurred together. Work, home, avoiding my phone. I told my assistant to screen all calls from my family. The credit card company confirmed the charges had been reversed. The resort in Aspen called once, asking about the cancellation. I explained that I hadn't made the reservation and definitely hadn't authorized payment. They were surprisingly understanding. 4 days before Christmas, a letter arrived at my apartment. Handwritten envelope, Mom's careful cursive on the front. I almost threw it away unopened. Curiosity won. I opened it standing by my trash can, ready to dispose of it immediately. Paulina, I don't understand what's happened to you. The daughter I raised would never treat her family this way. Your father is devastated. Brittany hasn't stopped crying. Even Kyle says he's never seen anything like this. We needed this trip. Not wanted. Needed. Your father's health isn't what it used to be. This might be the last chance we have for a family vacation together, and you're throwing it away over money, something you have plenty of. I'm asking you as your mother to reconsider. Pay for the trip. Come with us. Let's fix this as a family. If you refuse, I don't know if we can come back from this. Love, Mom. The manipulation was suffocating. Dad's health, which was fine according to his Facebook posts about golf. The last chance for family time, as if they were all dying tomorrow. The threat of permanent estrangement hiding behind love. I threw it away and I felt nothing but relief. Christmas Eve arrived. I went to dinner with friends, people I'd carefully chosen over the years who didn't drain me dry. Jessica from work, her husband Tim, and a couple I'd met through a book club. We ate at an Italian place downtown, drank too much wine, and laughed until my sides hurt. Nobody asked me for money. Nobody guilt-tripped me. Nobody suggested I owed them anything beyond showing up and being present. Walking home through the snowy Chicago streets, slightly drunk and completely content, I realized something profound. This was what healthy relationships felt like. Christmas Day was exactly what I planned. Take out Chinese food, a marathon of disaster movies, pajamas until 3 p.m. My phone stayed off. The day after Christmas, I finally checked my messages. More of the same from my family, escalating in anger and desperation. But there was also an email from my bank's fraud department. Someone had attempted to add themselves as an authorized user on my checking account. The request had been flagged and denied, but they thought I should know. The application had been submitted with Brittany's information. I sat there staring at my laptop, feeling something cold and final settle in my chest. They weren't going to stop. This wasn't about one vacation. This was about them believing they had unlimited access to my resources, my money, my life. The next part wasn't revenge exactly. It was more like cauterizing a wound. I wrote one final message to my family. I'm done. I will not be lending, giving, or otherwise providing money to any of you going forward. I will not be attending family gatherings. If you need to reach me for a genuine emergency, you can email me. I will not respond to texts or calls. This is because of your consistent pattern of treating me like a bank account instead of a person. The Aspen trip was the final straw, but it's been building for years. I'm choosing myself now. Don't contact me again unless you're ready to apologize and discuss boundaries. Otherwise, we're done. I sent it before I could second-guess myself. Then I changed my phone number, left the family group chat, and gave my new number only to people I trusted. The silence that followed was stunning. No more texts, no more calls, no more demands disguised as family obligation. I waited for the guilt to crush me. It flickered around the edges, familiar and insistent, but never quite took hold. Instead, I felt lighter. New Year's came and went. I took my trip to Montreal, walking through Old Town in the snow, drinking hot chocolate in cafes, feeling like I'd shed a skin I'd been trapped in for decades. Work picked up in January. I got a promotion. I'd been chasing a huge bump in salary. The old me would have immediately calculated how to share it with my family. The new me put it straight into my retirement account. February brought an unexpected email from my Aunt Carol, my mom's sister. We'd never been particularly close, but she'd always been kind in a distant way. Paulina, your mother told me what happened at Christmas. I'm sure she expects me to lecture you about family loyalty. I'm not going to do that. I watched your parents and your sister bleed you dry for years. I bit my tongue because it wasn't my place, but I'm done watching it happen. You did the right thing. Stand firm. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Love, Carol. I cried reading it. Not sad tears, but something like relief, mixed with validation. Someone from my family saw it. Someone understood. March brought the beginning of something unexpected. I'd been casually dating nothing serious when I met David at a friend's birthday party. He was an architect, funny and warm, with zero interest in my bank account, because he had his own successful practice. On our third date, he asked about my family. I gave him the abbreviated version, watching his face for judgment. So they tried to steal from you, he said matter of fact, and you cut them off. It sounds harsh when you put it that way. It sounds like basic self-preservation. My cousin pulled something similar with my grandparents. Took them months to realize he'd been forging checks. Sometimes family are just people who happen to share your DNA, and some people are garbage. I appreciated his bluntness more than he could know. April was when things got interesting. I received a letter from a law firm in Arizona. For a terrifying moment, I thought my parents were suing me. Instead, the letter informed me that I was being removed from their will. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off my couch. They were threatening to disinherit me, as if I'd been counting on an inheritance, as if they had anything I wanted beyond the relationship they'd already poisoned. I didn't respond to the letter. What was there to say? May brought an unexpected text from a number I didn't recognize. Hey, it's Brittany using a friend's phone. I need to talk to you. It's important. I stared at the message for a long moment, debating whether to respond at all. Finally, curiosity won by a narrow margin. About what? Kyle left me, took everything. I need help. There it was. The crisis that would make me relent. Sweep in to save her. Prove I was still the responsible big sister who fixed things. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you have friends or resources that can help you. Paulina, please. I have nowhere else to turn. The kids need things. I can't do this alone. You have Mom and Dad. They're barely scraping by themselves. You know that. I didn't know that, actually. But I wasn't surprised. They'd probably burn through their savings trying to maintain a lifestyle they couldn't afford. I can give you the number for some social services that might help. Beyond that, I can't do anything. Can't or won't? Both. I blocked the number. David asked me that night if I was okay. We were cooking dinner in his kitchen, something we'd started doing regularly. I told him about the text. You feel guilty, he observed gently. But you're not going to change your mind. No. He kissed my forehead. Good. Boundaries aren't cruelty, even when people try to make you feel like they are. Summer came. I went on vacation with David, a road trip through national parks. We hiked and camped and existed in a bubble where family drama couldn't reach us. Somewhere in Utah, looking up at a sky full of stars, he asked me to move in with him. I said yes. The fall brought an email from Mom. Not asking for money this time, just a simple message. I miss you. I'm sorry for how things ended. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to believe it. Wanted to think we could rebuild something healthy from the ashes. The larger, wiser part remembered $22,000 charged without permission, remembered thousands borrowed and never repaid, remembered being treated like a resource instead of a person. I replied, I'm willing to talk if you're genuinely ready to acknowledge what happened and establish real boundaries. That means no asking for money, no guilt trips, no attempts to manipulate me into funding your lifestyle. If you can agree to those terms, we can start with a phone call. Her response came 2 hours later. Those terms are ridiculous. We're a family. We shouldn't need boundaries. I thought you'd grown up enough to move past this, but clearly you're still being selfish. Don't bother contacting me again until you're ready to act like an adult. I filed the email away and didn't respond. The answer was clear enough. December rolled around again, a full year since the Aspen incident. I spent Christmas with David's family, his parents warm and welcoming, asking nothing of me beyond helping with dishes after dinner. His mom gave me a beautiful scarf she'd knitted. His dad and I bonded over a shared love of terrible action movies. This was what family could be. Chosen, healthy, based on mutual respect rather than obligation. I didn't think about my parents or Brittany that day. I was too busy being happy. January brought one final message, this time from Dad. Your mother had a health scare, heart palpitations. She's fine now, but it made me think. Life's too short for this grudge you're holding. Let it go, Paulina. Be the bigger person. I read it twice, then called Carol. Is Mom actually sick, or is this another manipulation? Carol sighed. She had some heart palpitations. Stress-related. The doctor told her to relax and stop worrying so much. She's fine. So this is them trying to guilt me back. Almost certainly. Thanks for being honest with me. Anytime, sweetheart. How are you doing? We talked for an hour, catching up properly for the first time in years. Carol told me about her garden, her quilting group, her grandkids. I told her about David, my job, the life I was building. You sound happy, she said. Finally, I am. Then you made the right choice. Don't let them steal that from you. I didn't respond to Dad's email. The months kept rolling by. David and I settled into our shared apartment. Work continued to challenge and fulfill me. I made new friends, strengthened old friendships, built a life based on reciprocity and respect. Sometimes I wondered if I was too harsh, if I should have given them one more chance, tried harder to fix things. The doubt would creep in during quiet moments, familiar and insidious. Then I'd remember the text. I already booked everything on your card. The casual certainty that I existed to fund their wants. The complete lack of respect for my autonomy or boundaries. The doubt would fade. Spring brought an unexpected encounter that crystallized everything. I was at a coffee shop near my office when I ran into an old friend from high school, Michelle Torres. We'd been close once before life took us in different directions. Paulina Hartley, oh my God, it's been forever. She pulled me into a hug, her enthusiasm genuine and infectious. We grabbed a table and the conversation flowed easily. She told me about her job as a teacher, her recent divorce, her struggles with her teenage son. Real struggles, the kind that made my chest ache with sympathy. I'm sorry, I'm totally unloading on you, she said, laughing self-consciously. You probably have your own stuff going on. I found myself telling her about my family. Not everything, but enough. The exploitation, the final straw, the decision to walk away. Michelle listened without judgment, her dark eyes thoughtful. When I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You know what I remember about you in high school, she said? You were always helping everyone. You tutored me in chemistry. You loaned people money. You drove friends to appointments when their parents couldn't. You were the most giving person I knew. I shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. I just did what anyone would do. No, you didn't. You did more. Way more. And I remember your sister, too. She'd show up at school wearing your clothes, using your stuff, and you just let it happen. Even back then, people noticed. The validation hit harder than I expected. Someone else had seen it, even when I'd been too conditioned to recognize it myself. I ran into your mom once, Michelle continued a few years ago at the mall. She spent 20 minutes bragging about Brittany's kids, her house, her life. When I asked about you, she said you were too busy with your career to visit much. The way she said career made it sound like a character flaw. I laughed, but it came out bitter. That sounds about right. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing, Michelle said. Life's too short to let people drain you, even if they're family. Especially if they're family. We exchanged numbers before parting ways, and I walked back to my office feeling lighter somehow. The encounter had been a gift I hadn't known I needed. That evening, I told David about seeing Michelle. He was cooking dinner, something with garlic and wine that made the apartment smell amazing. It's funny how validation from the right person can matter so much, I said, sitting on the counter watching him work. I've told myself 1,000 times I made the right choice, but hearing Michelle say it hit different because she knew me before. She saw the pattern from the outside, David said. That's powerful. Do you think I talk about this too much, I asked. My family, I mean. The whole situation. He stopped stirring and looked at me seriously. You're processing trauma, Paulina. That's not talking about it too much. That's healing. Take all the time you need. The tears came unexpectedly hot and fast. He set down the spoon and pulled me into his arms, letting me cry against his shoulder. I'm so tired of feeling guilty, I whispered. Even now, even knowing what they did, part of me still thinks I should have tried harder. That's the conditioning talking, he said quietly. Your parents spent 30 years programming you to believe their needs came first. You can't undo that overnight. Summer arrived with a heat wave that made the whole city swelter. David and I escaped to a lake house his parents owned for a long weekend. His sister Amanda was there too, with her husband and baby. Watching Amanda's family interact fascinated me. They asked each other for help, sure, but there was reciprocity. When Amanda's husband needed to run to town for supplies, she offered him gas money. When his parents watched the baby so the couple could have a date night, Amanda and her husband brought them back a nice bottle of wine, insisted on making breakfast the next morning. Give and take, support without exploitation. It seemed so simple, yet I'd never experienced it growing up. On our last night there, Amanda and I ended up alone on the dock, while the men handled dinner cleanup. The baby slept in a carrier against her chest, tiny and peaceful. David told me a little about your family situation, Amanda said carefully. I hope you don't mind. I tensed automatically. What did he say? Just that you'd had to cut them off for your own well-being. He didn't give details, and I'm not asking for them. I just wanted to say I'm sorry you went through that. Thanks. My college roommate had a similar situation, Amanda continued. Her mom was a narcissist, treated her like an ATM, took her years to break free. Amanda adjusted the baby slightly. She's so much happier now. Still gets sad sometimes around holidays, mourning what she wished she'd had rather than what she actually had. But overall, she's thriving. Does she ever regret cutting her mom off? She says the only thing she regrets is not doing it sooner. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the water. The peace I felt in that moment was so far removed from the chaos of my childhood that it almost seemed impossible they could exist in the same lifetime. You're good for David, you know, Amanda said eventually. He's happier than I've ever seen him, and you fit with our family like you've always been part of it. The acceptance in her words made my throat tight. This was what family could be, should be. August brought news through Aunt Carol that Brittany had started working at a call center. Kyle was paying child support, at least sporadically. Mom and Dad had taken out a reverse mortgage on their Arizona house. They're struggling, Carol said on the phone. Not desperate, but definitely feeling the pinch. I think they finally realized you weren't coming back to bail them out. Good. Your mother keeps asking me about you. Wants to know if you're doing okay, if you're still with David, what you're up to. What do you tell her? That you're doing great, and you'll reach out if you want to. Drives her crazy. I smiled despite myself. Thanks for being in my corner, Carol. Always, sweetheart. You deserved better than what they gave you. I'm just glad you finally realized it. 2 years after the Aspen incident, I got engaged. David proposed during a weekend trip to his family's cabin. Just the two of us and a bottle of champagne. I said yes without hesitation. Planning the wedding brought the question I'd been avoiding. Would I invite my family? David left it entirely up to me. Whatever you decide, I support it. But I think you already know your answer. He was right, I did. I sent wedding invitations to Aunt Carol, a few cousins I'd stayed in touch with, and left it at that. Mom, Dad, and Brittany weren't included. Carol called when she got hers. Thank you for including me. For what it's worth, your mother found out through the grapevine, and she's furious she wasn't invited. I figured she would be. She's telling everyone you've cut her off, completely making herself the victim. That's okay. The people who matter know the truth. The wedding was small, beautiful, and drama-free. Aunt Carol cried during the ceremony. David's family embraced me fully. My chosen family of friends celebrated with genuine joy. Nobody demanded money. Nobody caused a scene. Nobody tried to make the day about anything other than David and me. It was perfect. Standing there in my wedding dress, David's hand warm in mine, I felt nothing but gratitude for the choice I'd made 2 years earlier. Cutting off my family hadn't been cruel. It had been survival. They taught me that family meant sacrifice. I'd finally learned that sacrifice shouldn't mean sacrificing yourself. The last I heard, Brittany had remarried. Mom and Dad were still in Arizona, still playing bridge and golf. They were fine. They'd always be fine with or without access to my bank account. And me, I was more than fine. I was free. People ask sometimes if I regret it, if the price of boundaries was too high. They want me to express sadness or longing to fit the narrative of the prodigal daughter who yearns for reconciliation. I don't give them what they want. The truth is simpler and less palatable. I don't miss them. I don't miss the constant demands, the guilt trips, the feeling of being valued only for what I could provide. I don't miss being treated like a solution to their problems instead of a person with my own needs. What I have now is worth infinitely more than what I gave up. 3 years after the Aspen incident, on a random Tuesday, I got an email from Brittany. Not asking for anything this time, just a rambling message about regret and understanding and wishing things had been different. I get it now, she wrote. I have a friend going through something similar with her family. Watching it from the outside, I finally see how we treated you. I'm sorry, Paulina. Really sorry. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know. I read it carefully, looking for the angle, the hidden request. I couldn't find one. Maybe she meant it. Maybe she'd genuinely grown and changed. Or maybe this was just a more sophisticated manipulation. Either way, my answer remained the same. Thank you for the apology. I appreciate you taking the time to send it. I'm not interested in resuming contact, but I wish you well. Short, polite, final. She didn't respond, and I didn't expect her to. David found me later that evening, staring out our apartment window at the Chicago skyline. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. You okay? Yeah, Brittany apologized. That's good, right? I guess it doesn't change anything, though. It doesn't have to, he said. Sometimes an apology is just an apology, not an invitation to let people back in. I leaned into him, grateful once again for his uncomplicated understanding. Some people spend their whole lives trying to fix broken family relationships, convinced that blood should be thicker than self-preservation. They sacrifice their peace, their resources, their very selves on the altar of family. I used to be one of those people. I'm not anymore. The girl who would have paid for Aspen, who would have swallowed her anger and her boundaries to keep the peace, who would have let them slowly drain her dry while calling it love. She's gone. In her place is someone who knows her worth, who surrounds herself with people who value her for more than her wallet, who has built the life she actually wants to live. And if that makes me the villain in my family's story, if they paint me as the selfish daughter who abandoned them over money, I can live with that. Because I know the truth. I didn't abandon them over money. I left to save myself. And I'd make the same choice every single time. Final update. It's been 5 years now since the Aspen incident. Since the text message that changed everything. David and I have been married for 3 years, and we just found out we're expecting our first child this spring. When I told Aunt Carol about the pregnancy, she asked the question I knew was coming. Are you going to tell your parents? No. They'd want to know they're going to be grandparents. They made their choices. I made mine. My child will grow up knowing Aunt Carol, knowing David's family, knowing the friends who have become my chosen family. They'll learn that love isn't an obligation. That family should be a source of support rather than stress. That boundaries aren't betrayal. They'll never know the grandparents who only valued their daughter as a source of income. And that's exactly how I want it. Because the most important thing I learned from all of this is simple. You can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Eventually, there's nothing left of you but ashes.